Have you ever smiled on the outside while quietly breaking on the inside? There's a kind of pain we carry that no one sees, a wound that doesn't bleed, but never stops aching. In today's video, we won't give you quick fixes. We'll give you truth, 10 spiritual and stoic insights to help you finally stop resisting and start healing. Because your suffering doesn't need to be a sentence, it can be the beginning of something sacred. Why does it still hurt? Even years later? Why does the same pain keep showing up, wearing different faces? What if your struggle wasn't because you're broken, but because no one ever showed you how to stop feeding the pain? In this episode, we explore the unseen patterns that shape your suffering and reveal the Stoic truths that can break the cycle. If you're tired of silently bleeding, this is where it ends. Maybe healing isn't about fixing everything. Maybe it's about finally putting down what was never yours to carry. What if the emotional storm you're trapped in isn't about the past, but about the armor you've built around it? Today's video will guide you through 10 life-changing truths, rooted in Stoicism and soul. Because healing doesn't begin with time. It begins with truth, and the truth starts now. There comes a moment, quiet, heavy, and often unexpected, when you feel it deep in your chest. You can't carry it anymore. The memories you've tucked away, the pain you've tried to smile through, the weight of stories that were never fully told, all of it begins to swell. And though everything might look fine on the outside, you know something inside is bleeding. You function, you smile, you keep going, but there's a silent question that follows you everywhere. Why does it still hurt? Why, after all this time, am I still circling the same wound? It's not because the pain is strong. It's because, in ways both conscious and unconscious, we keep feeding it with silence, with resistance, with unchallenged beliefs about what happened and what it meant. We rehearse the old stories in our heads like they're sacred scripts, never realizing that they're keeping the wound open. But what if healing isn't about fixing everything? What if it's about gently releasing what was never ours to hold in the first place? In today's video, we'll uncover 10 spiritual and stoic insights that offer more than comfort, they offer liberation. These aren't quick fixes, they're invitations, quiet, powerful shifts in how you see yourself, your past, and your pain. Because healing doesn't begin with the passage of time. It begins with truth, and truth begins here. Let's begin with the first principle. What you resist persists. Why does pain linger long after the moment has passed? It's a question that echoes in the background of so many lives. A betrayal, a loss, a disappointment. The event ends, but its echo doesn't. It keeps showing up in our mood swings, our reactions, the way we hesitate to trust. It hides behind our smiles, beneath our productivity, inside our silence. The more we try to shove it away, the more it clings, as if pain itself feeds on the energy we use to resist it, as if our fight against it is what gives it form. This is the first paradox of emotional healing. Pain doesn't grow because it's mighty. It grows because we won't meet it face to face. We act as if we've moved on, but inside, we're still telling ourselves the story, over and over. We distract ourselves with work, with people, even with spiritual practice. But beneath it all, there's a silent war raging. Healing doesn't begin when you run from pain. It begins when you stop, when you pause, When you breathe into the discomfort and say, "Okay, I see you." The Stoics knew this well. They never said, "Deny your pain." They said, "Don't be ruled by it." There's a world of difference in that. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke." He wasn't suggesting pain isn't real. He was pointing to something deeper. That pain is not permanent unless you insist on keeping it close. Think of emotional pain like a wave. The more you resist, the harder it crashes. But if you soften, if you allow it to move through you, to rise, crest, and fall, it begins to lose its grip. Not because it disappears, but because you stopped feeding it with fear. And that, my friend, is not weakness. It's the greatest kind of strength. Because surrender is not the same as giving up. Surrender means releasing the illusion that you can control what has already happened. It means choosing peace over war, softness over struggle, truth over illusion. It means recognizing that the battle inside has been costing you too much: your sleep, your clarity, your sense of self. Letting go of resistance doesn't mean the pain was okay. It means you're not going to let it run your life anymore. It means you're ready to live unchained, to stop giving power to something that no longer serves you. You're not erasing your story. You're loosening its grip on your nervous system, your self-image, your breath, and it all starts with a quiet truth. You don't have to fight anymore. You can choose stillness. You can feel. You can stop pretending it didn't hurt, and still choose to move forward. Because the real enemy isn't the wound. It's the armor you've built around it. And sometimes, the bravest thing you'll ever do is not to stand tall, but to soften, to melt, to breathe into the ache without needing to fix it. So ask yourself, with honesty and courage, what pain am I still resisting? What might happen if I stopped fighting it, not to collapse, but to let it pass through me? Because that, right there, is where healing begins. And this leads us to the next doorway. Acceptance is the beginning of peace. Why does the same kind of pain keep showing up in your life? Even when the faces, places, and circumstances change? It's a haunting question. You leave one relationship behind, only to find the same wounds reappearing in the next. You assert new boundaries at work, yet somehow still feel ignored, used, or unseen. You vow never to fall for the same emotional trap, and yet, there you are again. Is it just bad luck? A cruel twist of fate? Or is there something deeper, something within you, quietly recreating these experiences? Here's the uncomfortable truth. What you don't heal, you repeat. Not because you're weak or flawed, but because the unconscious mind is always seeking completion. It's like a story left unfinished, and your nervous system keeps calling in the same characters, the same script, hoping this time it will end differently. These unconscious patterns form early, in childhood, through trauma, in moments when you were too young to understand, but old enough to feel the sting. In those moments, your body learned how love feels, how rejection lands, what safety does or doesn't look like, and your nervous system adapted. You began to form beliefs that quietly governed your emotional life. Love means abandonment. Success means exhaustion. Vulnerability means danger. These weren't conscious choices, they were emotional survival strategies. And now, as an adult, They've become the silent operating system that drives your relationships, reactions, and choices. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But this isn't just a warning, it's a way forward. Because once you realize that your recurring pain isn't random, you can stop feeling cursed and start feeling curious. So how do you begin to see the patterns? You start by noticing your triggers. What makes your chest tighten? What small comment feels like a deep wound? What situations cause a reaction that feels bigger than the moment? Often, these reactions are echoes. They're not about the present, they're about the past still living in your body. They're old stories. Reawaken. Next, examine the roles you keep playing. Are you always the fixer? The silent one? The people pleaser? The martyr? Ask yourself, where did I learn this? Whose voice is guiding this behavior? Trace it back to its origin, and you begin to reclaim your power. The Stoics may not have spoken in psychological terms, but they understood this profoundly. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." The harm is in persisting in one's self-deception. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. When you start naming your pattern, you loosen its grip. You say, "This is where I abandon myself. This is where I seek validation. This is where I choose silence to feel safe." And with that clarity comes choice. The pattern may not vanish overnight, but it no longer controls you blindly. Think of it this way. You can't rewrite the story if you're still inside the same chapter. But once you step back, you can become the author again. So, ask yourself honestly, what painful pattern keeps replaying in my life? What role have I unconsciously accepted as my identity? And what might change, truly change, if I no longer needed to stay in that role to feel safe? Because healing isn't just about letting go of the past. It's about changing your future by seeing the present clearly. Why does the same kind of pain keep showing up in your life? Even when the faces, places, and circumstances change? It's a haunting question. You leave one relationship behind, only to find the same wounds reappearing in the next. You assert new boundaries at work, yet somehow still feel ignored, used, or unseen. You vow never to fall for the same emotional trap, and yet, there you are again. Is it just bad luck? A cruel twist of fate? Or is there something deeper, something within you, quietly recreating these experiences? Here's the uncomfortable truth. What you don't heal, you repeat, not because you're weak or flawed, but because the unconscious mind is always seeking completion. It's like a story left unfinished, and your nervous system keeps calling in the same characters, the same script, hoping this time it will end differently. These unconscious patterns form early, in childhood, through trauma, in moments when you were too young to understand, but old enough to feel the sting. In those moments, your body learned how love feels, how rejection lands, what safety does or doesn't look like, and your nervous system adapted. You began to form beliefs that quietly governed your emotional life. Love means abandonment. Success means exhaustion. Vulnerability means danger. These weren't conscious choices, they were emotional survival strategies. And now, as an adult, They've become the silent operating system that drives your relationships, reactions, and choices. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But this isn't just a warning, it's a way forward. Because once you realize that your recurring pain isn't random, you can stop feeling cursed and start feeling curious. So how do you begin to see the patterns? You start by noticing your triggers. What makes your chest tighten? What small comment feels like a deep wound? What situations cause a reaction that feels bigger than the moment? Often, these reactions are echoes. They're not about the present, they're about the past still living in your body. They're old stories. Reawaken. Next, examine the roles you keep playing. Are you always the fixer? The silent one? The people pleaser? The martyr? Ask yourself, where did I learn this? Whose voice is guiding this behavior? Trace it back to its origin, and you begin to reclaim your power. The Stoics may not have spoken in psychological terms, but they understood this profoundly. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." The harm is in persisting in one's self-deception. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. When you start naming your pattern, you loosen its grip. You say, "This is where I abandon myself. This is where I seek validation. This is where I choose silence to feel safe." And with that clarity comes choice. The pattern may not vanish overnight, but it no longer controls you blindly. Think of it this way. You can't rewrite the story if you're still inside the same chapter. But once you step back, you can become the author again. You begin to respond instead of react. Yes, this work is uncomfortable. It means facing the possibility that your suffering wasn't just random, it felt familiar. Even safe. And in some way, part of you chose it. Not because it was good, but because it was known. But there's no shame in that. Only a quiet invitation to awareness. Only a call to wake up. Patterns lose their power the moment you begin to see them clearly. When you name the cycle out loud, "This is where I abandon myself. This is where I overextend to feel worthy. This is where I choose silence over truth," you interrupt it. You begin to write a new chapter. And with time, you learn something essential. Healing isn't just about releasing the past. It's about creating a future that isn't a mirror of old wounds. It's about becoming conscious, not in one giant leap, but gently, layer by layer, with presence, with compassion, with courage. So pause, reflect, ask yourself, what emotional pattern keeps surfacing in my life? What pain have I silently accepted as normal, simply because it's familiar? And what might open up if I stopped playing that role? You're not cursed, you're just ready. 5. Letting go hurts less than holding on. Why is it so hard to let go, even when the thing you're holding on to already let go of you? This is one of the deepest, quietest forms of suffering, carrying the emotional weight of something long gone. A relationship that ended years ago, a dream that died slowly, a conversation that never came, a closure you never got. Even though it's over, it still lives inside your mind as if it happened yesterday. Not because it still has power, but because you're still clinging to it. Letting go is so often misunderstood. We think it means pretending we weren't affected. We think it means forgetting, moving on like nothing happened. But that's not what real letting go looks like. Real letting go is not about indifference. It's not passivity. It's power. It's the conscious choice to stop feeding something that's already finished. It's choosing to no longer tie your identity, your worth, or your peace to something that no longer exists, at least not in the way you once hoped. Here's the hard truth. Holding on doesn't preserve love. It preserves suffering. Every time you replay the what ifs, the should haves, and the could have beens, you reopen the wound. You're not hurting because of what happened. You're hurting because of how tightly you held on to what you wish had happened. The Stoics were clear about this. Epictetus said we suffer not from the events themselves, but from our judgment of them. We can't control the storm once it's passed, but we can choose to stop standing in the rain after the sky has cleared. Letting go doesn't mean the pain wasn't real. It means you're no longer choosing to bleed for it. Because yes, letting go hurts, but clinging? That hurts longer. That hurts deeper. And you may not even notice it. Because pain disguised as loyalty becomes part of your identity. You convince yourself, if I let go, it means I didn't care. If I let go, it means they win. But that's not your soul talking. That's your ego. Your soul doesn't keep score. It doesn't need closure to begin again. It just wants peace. So how do you let go when everything in you still wants to hold on? You start by asking, what has this memory cost me? How many mornings have I spent grieving something that isn't coming back? How many moments have I missed reliving one that already ended? The mind clings to pain, hoping it will fix something, but it only rewounds you. Again and again. Next, you allow yourself to grieve. Letting go doesn't mean pretending. It means giving yourself space to feel. Fully and honestly. You loved. You hoped. It didn't work. You get to mourn that. And then, gently, you decide, I deserve to be free. Not because they said sorry. Not because it made sense. But because my future can't begin if I'm still chained to the past. Letting go isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of a deeper kind. The kind you give to yourself when you stop waiting for closure and start creating peace. So ask yourself, what am I still holding on to, long after it stopped holding me? And what might open up, in my mind, my heart, my body, if I finally let it go? Sometimes the greatest strength isn't holding tighter. It's knowing when and how to release. Who are you, truly, without your pain? It's a question that lands like thunder in a quiet room. It startles. It silences. Because most of us have never really asked it. We've lived so long wrapped in the fabric of our past wounds, the betrayal that still stings, the abandonment that left a hollow space, the failure that echoes in our confidence, that we start to believe they are us. Not just memories, not just moments, but identity. We don't introduce ourselves by name anymore. We introduce ourselves by scars, by the heaviness in our eyes, by the guarded way we speak about love, trust, or hope. And the more we carry that story, the more we forget there's a story beyond it. This pain is who I am. This struggle defines me. This wound is my truth. But it isn't. You are not what broke you. You are who you choose to become in the quiet aftermath. In the space where healing begins, with patience, with self-compassion, and with radical truth. The wound is not the book. It's just a chapter. Yet in today's world, where trauma is worn like armor and survival stories are praised more than peace, it's easy to forget that healing isn't just about making it through. It's about letting go of the identity you built around the hurt. Not because the pain wasn't real, but because it's no longer needed to feel real. The ego clings to pain because it gives structure. If I am the betrayed, I don't have to trust again. If I'm the victim, I don't have to risk being powerful. If I'm the one who was left, I never have to face the vulnerability of being chosen. Pain becomes armor, and armor is heavy. We wear it so long we forget what it feels like to move freely, to breathe fully, to be, without defining ourselves by what we've endured. But the Stoics whisper something different. They remind us that we are not our emotions. We are not our circumstances. We are not the stories the past has written in our margins. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This isn't denial, it's authorship. It's reclaiming the pen and rewriting the present. Carl Jung, too, knew the truth. He taught us not to reject our shadows but to integrate them. To acknowledge the wound without becoming it. To say, yes, this happened. Yes, it shaped me, but it does not define me. Healing begins when you stop needing pain to prove your strength. When you understand that you can be powerful and soft. That resilience isn't forged through endless suffering, but through self-honesty. This shift doesn't happen all at once, but it starts in small, revolutionary moments. When you tell your story and let your light shine brighter than the wound. When you pause before reacting to a trigger and choose a breath instead. When you stop performing your pain just to feel seen and realize you already are enough. So how do you release the identity you've built around your hurt? Start by separating the event from the essence. What happened to you is real, but who you are is a decision. Speak about the pain in past tense, not to erase it, but to honor how far you've come. Stop using your suffering as a reason to shrink, and start using your strength as a reason to rise. And most tenderly, forgive yourself for the ways you coped, for the years you stayed hidden, for the choices that felt like survival, because they were. You forgive not because you were wrong, but because you're ready to be free. Your identity is not your wound. It's the love you choose, the peace you cultivate, the truth you embody, especially when it's hard. So pause, reflect, ask yourself, if I wasn't defined by my pain, who would I be? That version of you, quiet, grounded, whole, already exists. They're not lost. They're simply waiting to be remembered. And with that, we turn the page to a deeper truth. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. The body is not separate from the soul. It is the sacred vessel through which your deepest truth tries to speak, especially when words fall short. That tightness in your chest, the tension in your jaw, the weight behind your eyes that no one else can see, these are not signs of weakness. They are whispers of unspoken stories. They are the body's way of saying, "Please listen." Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But what's rarely acknowledged is this: the unconscious doesn't only live in your thoughts. It lives in your breath, in your spine, in the way your shoulders curl inward after years of bracing for impact. Healing doesn't always begin with a grand epiphany. More often, it begins with something far subtler, a softening, a sigh, a return to the body. We've been taught to explain pain, to analyze it, to fix it with logic and language. But trauma doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in sensations, in shutdown, in silence. It hides in the impulse to run, to freeze, to disappear from ourselves. And so, if we truly want to heal, we must return to where the wound lives, not in the mind, but in the body. The Stoics understood this deeply. They trained their bodies not to punish, but to prepare, to hold presence, to remain calm amidst the chaos. Seneca once wrote, "The body must be trained, not broken, and kept strong, not enslaved to pleasure or fear." This wisdom is echoed by modern science. Any real healing must include the body. So what does it mean to truly listen to your body? It means noticing the places that ache not from effort, but from holding in too much for too long. It means asking, gently, what is this tension trying to tell me? It means letting your tears rise without shame, letting your breath deepen without fear. It means returning to stillness not as a performance, but as an act of devotion, of coming home to yourself. Because when the body finally feels safe, the soul exhales too. You don't need to relive every wound to release it, but you do need to feel it fully, in your skin, in your breath, in the quiet space where presence meets compassion. That healing might come in many forms: movement, music, touch, stillness, dance, or a deep cry in the dark. Maybe it's placing your hand on your heart and simply whispering, "I'm here." Maybe it's allowing yourself to rest, truly rest, without guilt, without needing to earn it. Because here's what no one tells you. Sometimes your body begins healing before your mind is ready to catch up. And that's okay. Let it. Ask yourself gently, what is my body trying to say that my mind has been too busy or too afraid to hear? Maybe the answers you've been seeking don't live in more thinking. Maybe they live in more presence, in more silence, in more trust that the healing you've been searching for is already unfolding inside you. And as we begin to listen, we come to another profound realization, one that the Stoics and sages alike have echoed across centuries. Feelings are not forever. I won't run from you, but I won't worship you either. This is the sacred posture we must learn to take with emotion. Not resistance, not control, just presence. Because the moment you stop resisting a feeling, you give it permission to move, and movement is what transforms it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is nothing. Just sit still. Let the wave pass. Let the ache breathe. Not fix it, not flee it. Simply feel it, witness it, hold it in the soft palms of your attention, and trust that it will not stay forever. You won't always feel broken. You won't always feel lost. You won't carry this same weight forever, even if it feels like it's stitched into your very bones. And if that emotion returns, as emotions often do, you'll meet it differently, with deeper grace, with softer strength, because each time you endure the storm, each time you breathe through it instead of running, you remember a deeper truth. Milky Way, you are the sky, not the storm. So pause and ask yourself, what feeling have I mistaken as permanent? What would change if I just let it pass through, without judgment, without narrative? You are not your sadness. You are not your rage. You are not your fear. You are the one who sees, the one who breathes, the one who rises again and again. And now, we reach a truth that few are brave enough to sit with, yet all who heal eventually must. 9. Silence is where real healing begins. Have you ever sat in complete silence and felt uncomfortable? Not because of the quiet itself, but because of what started to emerge within it. In our world of noise, endless scrolling, constant alerts, non-stop voices, silence can feel unnatural, even threatening. But what if it's not the silence that's scary, but the self we meet inside it? Silence isn't empty, it's honest. It's presence without demand. It's truth, stripped of distraction. True healing doesn't begin in noise. Not in the advice of others. Not in the podcasts or the books or the well-meaning encouragement. It begins in the stillness, where nothing is performing and everything hidden begins to rise. Gently, reluctantly, truthfully. It's in silence that the stories lose their grip. That the pain beneath the words begins to whisper. That your soul, tired of being buried, starts to speak. The Stoics knew this. They embraced silence not as escape, but as discipline. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And in silence, those imagined sufferings begin to reveal themselves for what they truly are. Echoes of a story we've told too many times. Because in silence, clarity arrives. The fear, not as real as it felt. The shame, not yours to carry. The pain, not who you are. But here's the catch. Silence asks for honesty. You can't hide from yourself in silence. No phone, no audience, just you. And what's been waiting underneath it all? The grief. The disappointment, the ache you buried beneath busyness. Carl Jung saw silence as a portal, a sacred door to the unconscious. He wrote, "Solitude is for me a fountain of healing, not because it's easy, but because it's where we finally meet the parts of ourselves we've abandoned." So how do we reclaim silence in a world that fears it? You don't have to vanish to the mountains. Just step away from noise, even for 5 minutes. No music, no phone, just breath, just presence, just you. And in that stillness, something ancient stirs. A sigh you didn't know you were holding. A thought that finally lands. A truth that didn't need a microphone, just a moment of your attention. This is the medicine silence offers, the kind no one else can give you. So ask gently, when was the last time I gave myself silence, not as a punishment, but as a gift? What might I hear if I actually listened? You don't need to be louder to be healed. You just need to be still. And in that stillness, something timeless wakes up, the part of you that knows you've been whole all along. And that realization leads us to the next question, one that shifts everything. 10. Pain is not a punishment. It's a portal. Pain doesn't come to destroy you, it comes to awaken you. It invites you into discomfort, not as punishment, but as a mirror, one that shows you who you've been, what you've tolerated, and most importantly, who you're capable of becoming. The Stoics never feared pain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Just as nature turns every obstacle into fuel for growth, so too can a rational soul transform setbacks into stepping stones." Pain, in this view, isn't the enemy. It's the invitation, the gateway, The raw material from which your next chapter is formed, not despite the hurt, but because of it. But here's where many of us get stuck. We ask the wrong question. Why me? Why now? Why did they leave? Why did everything fall apart? And while these are deeply human questions, they can trap us in a loop, a cycle of blame, confusion, and powerlessness. Because the real question is not why, but what now? What will I do with this pain? What will I create from it? What boundary will I no longer bend? What truth will I finally honor? Because when you let it, pain becomes a sacred scalpel, slicing away what no longer serves you. It humbles your ego, but strengthens your soul. It dares you to choose, collapse or evolve. Carl Jung believed pain was essential for transformation. He wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Why? Because pain rips away illusion. It exposes what's false about yourself, about others, about what you thought life was supposed to be. And in that raw, honest place, you begin again. Not as who you were, but as who you were meant to become. Yes, it's uncomfortable. No, it's not linear. And there are no guarantees. But if you move through the fire with eyes open and heart steady, pain won't leave you broken. It will leave you aware. So if you're in the thick of it right now, if something has ended, or someone has gone, or the world you built has crumbled, ask gently, "Seedling, what part of me is being asked to grow? What truth is this pain teaching me that comfort never could?" You don't have to thank the pain, but you can walk through it with purpose. You can let it shape you, not into someone colder, but into someone more real, someone more grounded, more courageous, more awake. Because pain is not the final chapter. It's the doorway to a deeper one. And now, here you are, on the other side of the storm. Not untouched, not unshaken, but more alive than you've ever been. What you've explored here, these 10 truths, they aren't just concepts. They're keys, quiet invitations to unlock what's always been within you. Because the truth is, you were never broken. You were just carrying pain no one taught you how to release. But now you know that what you resist, persists, and surrender is not weakness. It's freedom. You know that acceptance is peace. That the ego clings to pain, but the soul is ready to let it go. That your patterns aren't curses, they're maps. That letting go isn't giving up, it's choosing you. You know that you are not your wound. You are the way you rise from it. You know your body remembers, and it deserves tenderness. That feelings pass, and you're stronger than all of them. That silence isn't empty, it's where the truth finally speaks. And you know now, pain is not a punishment. It's a portal, a passageway to rebirth, to softness, to a version of you that no longer needs armor to be strong, just truth to be whole. So now the only question that remains is this. Sparkles, what will you do with what you now see? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for closure, or apology, or permission. Begin now, in stillness, in strength, in truth. If this video moved something in you, pause and take it in. Sparkles, share it with someone who's carrying pain they don't yet know how to release. Man in Lotus Position, subscribe and join this growing circle, a community that chooses healing, depth, and clarity every single day. Speech Balloon, leave a comment. Let others know they're not alone in this. Because healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget. You weren't born to stay in pain. You're here to rise through it.